Well, Assalamu alaikum. This is November 27, 2021, and I think I got a good video for you today. This one I'm going to be going over is on the charismatic movement. Now, this movement is worldwide. This movement had sprang out of organized denominationalism, and it was I would guess sort of they wanted to go their own way because they didn't agree with what was going on, but didn't want to leave a whole lot of the principles that they had enjoyed. So they just left and started this movement. It really is Pentecostal based. When I say Pentecostal, I mean it has some of the things that Pentecostalism has, like healing, speaking in tongues, full faith, a rigid adherence to the gospel and the Bible as a whole. So I think you're going to enjoy this one, and something that is pretty common in the United States. You'll see these buildings up all over. They may call themselves non-denominational, which is sort of it's just not true, because they do have some denominational backgrounds depending on what pastor they have. They could be full faith. They got a bunch of different names that they go by. So and like I say, like with any other group, they're hard to nail down on exactly what they believe. But you can better believe that I'll give you Webster's definition. Now let me start with that. Webster says that it's a group or a movement that stresses the seeking of direct divine inspiration, or charisms, such as speaking in tongues or healing. Now, those are the two characteristics of the charismatic movement, speaking in tongues and healing. There will be others, depending on what type of group it is and who's the leader. Some groups have one leader, and some groups may have several. So there won't be one designated leader. It would be divided among several that would be speaking and teaching. These groups usually meet in storefront buildings. They usually set up chairs. They usually have a projector of some kind, and they sing a different kind of music. They don't sing hymns like some of the evangelical Baptists and so forth would, but they'll sing praise songs. Now these songs come from the Psalms. Actually, a lot of them are from the Psalms. They're sang with instruments, guitars, pianos, organs, synthesizers, you name it. And there's a lot of hand clapping and hand raising, a lot of what they would call adoration of God. When they do that, you'll see them with their hands up like this, and their eyes are closed, and they're really serious, those that are involved in what they're doing. So you're going to see these individuals all over. I think one verse that would be a characteristic of this movement would be, there's a verse in the Bible where it says, if thou canst believe, all things are possible to him that believes. Okay? And they believe that if the Bible says it, James, the book of James, that you can anoint the sick and the prayer of faith will heal the sick. Hebrews 11, the faith passage. They believe all these things. So they're biblically based as a rule. Of course, they could have some offshoots that would go off into here or there and have some things that would be peculiar just to them, like Jesus only. There's some of those groups. Instead of baptizing in the name of the Father, Son, Holy Spirit, they're baptized in the name of Jesus. So there's some differences in these groups. minor differences. I want to give you 5 main characteristics that you can recognize these charismatics. One is they may have several leaders or teachers. I told you that just a minute ago. There's no centralized authority that they're responsible to. So each church is individual and autonomous. They can have whoever they want. Some leaders will be a Sunday morning, some will be Sunday night, some will be some other special occasions. They divide the ministry up, or they may just have one minister. So it doesn't, it's not a rule that it's steadfast that they're going to do it this way and that's the only way. But they could have several leaders or teachers. And number 2, they're not hooked to outside authorities. There's no bishops to come around and tell them you got to teach this doctrine and there's this set doctrine. I made that pretty clear. There is no set doctrine. There's some few characteristic doctrines that they believe. But as a rule, there's nothing usually down on paper where you can read it and this is what they believe. Baptists have a statement of faith. Lutherans have some kind of confession, creed, a creedal confession. Catholics have it. Episcopals have it. A lot of groups have a creed. But as a rule, charismatics don't. They generally do speak in tongues and do believe in healing. So that's a characteristic. Now each group may be different. That's number 3. And I think I stressed that pretty good. There's no one size fits all. They can be a diverse doctrine amongst them. Some may not even believe certain things about the Bible. They may believe that this passage is, yeah, it's in the Bible, but it's not for today. Or they may have these differences like that, doctrinal differences. Usually, number 4, if you come in a place and they're all clapping, guitars are blaring, amplifiers, somebody's singing, they're lifting their hands and clapping their hands, generally you're probably in a charismatic group. Now I want you to understand too, these groups can be inside of mainline denominations as well. The Catholics back in the, I believe it was the 70s and 80s, had a movement. Maybe it's still alive today, but they had some of these things going on in Catholic worship service. So as far as guitars and playing ballad songs and music and stuff like that, that was pretty much, and I did see, back then I did see Catholics raising their hands and clapping. Some of these things were going on, and they were on the charismatic tendencies. Now, that's what I mean, number 5, when they can be part of a denominational group. Ones that are really regulated, they have a hard time to survive. In a Catholic situation where you have a bishop and he oversees the priests, he oversees the congregation, he may be favorable to this type of worship, and he may not be. So they're inside of denominations as well. Baptists sort of try to eliminate them. They don't like them. The mainline Baptists, the older people I'm talking about, the ones that are from 50 on up, the ones that grew up with hymns and grew up with pianos and things like that, they tend not to lean towards this type of worship service. It's usually a pretty lively service. I was in Colombia one time, and I went to a service that was charismatic, and it was kind of bizarre. They were dancing, they had dancers in long dresses that would float down the aisle, and they would have these long sashes that they would be swinging around and all this. It was actually quite a scene, and You know, I've been in charismatic churches in this country many times, but that was quite a scene to see that going on in a different country. So it's all over. Um, it's not just in the United States. I would say all over the world, and it's a growing movement. It's a growing movement with the younger people who enjoy this kind of worship service. Now, that's way different than what Muslims and Jews would have, or what they would consider a worship service, where there would probably be in the Sunni Muslims, there would be no music. The Shiite would probably have something different. They would have music sometimes and some other differences going on. So bear in mind, there's all kinds of people out there, and I'm not saying who's wrong or right. I'm not going to make that determination. You know, there's one thing that the Prophet, peace be upon him, he never went to the groups and started to discuss what idol did what, and if this was the actual idol or if this was a real one and why it was wrong and all that. He just said it was wrong. Okay. He didn't. He said throw them out. There's only one God. He didn't go into detail about all these things. And today we're putting a lot of detail on other people's religions. And instead, I think we should be out there and just say, hey, this is Islam. Now, this is what it teaches, and this is what we believe to be the correct way. And we think everyone should come over down this path. But take into consideration, most people are not going to. Just like at the day of the Prophet, a lot of people rejected him. He was cast out of town on one occasion, stoned. They threw rocks at him, tore up all his clothes with the rocks. I can just imagine. These things, you're not gonna convince everyone, okay? And I think what we do today, we kind of do it on the wrong foot. I mean, we set out and we're gonna disprove the Bible, and we think we're going to get converts because we disprove the Bible. Not going to happen. That's not going to happen. And there's a lot of people that use the same tactics that Muslims are using today to disprove the Quran. I'll get off that subject now, but I want to relate a story because I've had some experience with charismatic people. And at one point in my life, I went to drive for Snyder. I don't know if you know, if you're not from the United States, you don't know what the big orange trucks that say Snyder on the side. It's a company that's based out of Green Bay, Wisconsin. That's where their home base is. But they've got terminals all over the country, and many thousands of trucks. I don't know if it was 40, 60, or even 80,000 trucks in some foreign countries like Canada, and I know they had them up in Alaska and all over, so it's a pretty big operation, some down in Mexico. But anyway, I went to drive for this company, and I was really, at the time, I was in pretty bad shape financially. I had got a lot of tickets, and when you get a lot of tickets and you got your own truck, your insurance goes up through the roof and you can't pay it, so your best thing to do is to drive for somebody else and let their insurance cover you. Okay, so that's what I was doing. And I was up in Charlotte, North Carolina, at one of their terminals, and that's where I was brought into Snyder from, in Charlotte. And I think I was at the end of my orientation. I'm not sure if it was 3 days. I think it was 3 days of orientation, which was paperwork and how they wanted you to do things, and how, and so forth and so on. And they introduced you to the equipment and told you how they wanted their equipment taken care of. And, those kinds of things. That was orientation, not paperwork. And anyway, I was about ready to get turned loose, and they rented me a car. Yeah, I think it was a Pontiac. I can still remember it was a red Pontiac Trans Am. Yeah, I mean, it was a nice, fancy car, and it was a new one. And that thing would book down the highway, I'm telling you. So anyway, I'm about ready to leave, and I'm throwing my bag in the back of the car, and terminal manager come running over, one of the terminal managers, and said, "Hey, you're going towards Evergreen. Can you give this guy a ride who's going to Georgia Wire?" And it was in La Crosse, I think it was, Georgia. I'm trying to say that's what it was, but it may have been some different place. But anyway, he was going to go to pick his truck up, and I said, "Sure." I said, "If he wants to ride along, I'll go that way." But it was off of 20, so it really wasn't my direction. I could have went 65, on down to 85. I could have went to 85 and down 65 to Evergreen, because I was going to Evergreen, Alabama. That was going to be my terminal. And I got this guy in the car, and it wasn't very long in the conversation, and I figured out what he was, that he was some kind of, well, besides being a nut, bona fide, certified nut, he was also like charismatic. And he was telling me all these magnificent things that he witnessed, and he was telling me about his background, which was a $200 a day drug addict, and and all these other things, and he was recovered drug addict, and I think his mind was burnt out, to tell you the truth. I think the drugs had really taken their toll onto him. But well, we start out, and I'm listening to the conversation. I'm not really saying much at all. I'm just wanting to, after a while, 35, 40 minutes, I'm just looking to get rid of this guy. So I'm going 75, 80 miles an hour, to get him where he's got to be so I can get rid of him. And he starts talking about an experience he had. And I'll just give you this one experience, because this is so typical about charismatics. They have unforgettable experiences that are just magnificent experiences that are in the psychic and angelic realm. And whether it's healing or whatever it is, you'll see a lot of that if you ever turn your TV on and watch some of these faith healers. It's a health and wealth gospel. You got to be healthy and wealthy, and sickness shouldn't be, or it's some kind of a devil put it on you. And, well, anyway, this guy was relating a story about him driving a dump truck. And when I heard about dump truck, I sort of, that's kind of interesting. He drove a dump truck before. I had driven one for a while as well. So anyway, he's telling me about this story where he was on the road, and I think it was cold and it was raining, and all this, just a horrible situation, day, and he seen somebody standing hitchhiking, and he felt sorry for him, and stopped the truck and got him up in the truck. And shortly after he got up in the truck, he probably started his same conversation with him. But this person, identity, I don't know what you'd want to call it, deity, not deity, but this angelic individual was supposed to be Satan. And boy, when I heard that, I said, this guy's really lost his marbles. There's rocks up there shaking around. But anyway, he told me this devil was up there telling him all kinds of things that he should do, and he knew it was the devil because he had transformed. Now, I don't know what the devil would look like when he transforms. In fact, I don't really know what the devil would look like. It's certainly not the red one with the horns and the pitchfork. But anyway, he said the devil transformed before his eyes, and he knew for certain it was the devil, and he wanted to get him out of the truck, and he couldn't get him out of the truck, and it was, I am thankful that we were on the last 40 minutes of the drive, and I didn't have very long to get rid of this guy, because I think this guy was really mentally disturbed. And the more I meet some of the people, and I'm not saying all the people in the charismatic movement are like this, But I'm saying there's a portion of them that are delusional to a certain extent. I don't know if they're seeing devils and demons, but they certainly see things. At least they think they do, and that's a characteristic of the charismatic movement. In fact, the Pentecostal movement as well. Pentecostals see things all the time. They see things that I've never seen when I sat there. So, this is quite a group to try to reach out to as a Muslim. Like I say, don't be surprised if you don't have a lot of success. When we culminate all these videos, and I'll be doing more from time to time, but we're going to try to go to the flea market if they'll let me. Now, some may not let you in there with a religious message that they would call a religious message. They may not, and being a Muslim is not very well liked in the South. So it's going to take an open-minded person at the flea market to allow me to rent the table and give out tracts and stuff. But what we're going to do is we're going to stream some of these encounters, and I know there's going to be a lot of them, and you're going to be really surprised on what some of these people believe. Trust me. And you're going to watch how I deal with them, and maybe it can be a pattern. Maybe you can learn something from that. I've been dealing with people for a long time, so I know when to speed up and when to slow down. So this is what's going to be happening in the future. I'm going to ask for your support on that. When we get to that point in time, we're going to need some items and probably some donations. Not a lot. I mean, we're going to need a canopy, to keep the stuff under. We're going to need some tables. Tracts, Quran, other literature. I'm probably going to need a fan. There's probably no electricity in some of these markets, and it's outside, a lot of it. So we're going to need a fan and maybe a small generator. So I'm going to take up collections for that. And I'll let you know how it's going. We'll set an amount, a number. And I would like to get a better camera, one that I can turn on by remote, so when somebody walks up, I don't have to walk over and click the camera. I can just pull the remote out and start the camera up, and that would be a lot more tactful, and I think you'd get a lot more people that would be open that way. Okay, so this is what we're going to do in the future. I hope you enjoyed this video. It's been a while since I made a video, and partly because a lot of things were going on with the COVID virus and the other things I was going through, and we're going to try to get back on track. And like I said, the goal, the real goal, is to get out there and to deliver some of this material. Well, not only will we be collecting donations and money, donations and tracts, Quran, whatever can be donated in that respect. I'll give you an address at that point in time where you could take and box some stuff up. As far as money, you don't have to, probably not going to use PayPal and all these other things, because it's just going to be a temporary type thing. Just stick some money in an envelope and mail it that way, fold it in between paper. Use discretion, you know what I'm saying. But it would be deeply appreciated, and it would be helping to further Islam. So I think it should be something that you as a Muslim should be interested in, and you as a Muslim should support. Now, I'm putting myself out there, and you're going to get a lot of irate people. I know, because where I live and the flea markets around me, there's a lot of backwoods kind of guys, probably all Christian, probably, or maybe not at all. But anyway, these kinds of people, and they probably are not going to like the message. It'd be a miracle of Allah if I can get them to listen for a few minutes, So we're going to see how it goes. And that's going to be in the future, and I'll let you know when. We'll start collecting. Right now, most people are afraid of the COVID virus, so they're not out doing anything, and they're not going into crowds. But I can remember in the past, the market was like this with people, you know, just hundreds of people walking down the aisles, and people would sell housewares and this and that. So it's going to be a little different thing, you know. Now, if we can get set up in there, if we can't, we're going to have to look for a different place. But that would be ideal because of the numbers of people. All right, we come to the end of this one, and I want to say Assalamu alaikum. May Allah bless you richly, may He protect you, may He keep you healthy, you and your family. Until we meet again, salam.